Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we are talking about the Haunted Sorcerer option from the Grim Hollow campaign setting.
Missed opportunity. Like, why didn't we do this like at Halloween?
There's too many things to go through, people. Alright? Next time.
Spooky other holidays.
Anyways, if you're new to the channel or the series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. We're going to rate the roleplay, combat, and synergy based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve the base class abilities.
Yes.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our D&D Beyond bundle giveaway.
This free stuff is not spooky.
All that being said, let's get right into it.
We're going to get some spells. Sorcerer.
Oh, free spell.
Getting spells.
Fantastic.
What a
Should be-
novelty idea.
be normal.
Who suggested that? What a genius. Oh, wait. Freaking wait it. I mean, and everybody else, too. Not
It
just
is
us.
becoming more common as well
Yeah,
now,
it
and
is.
official stuff,
It is.
which is nice.
Unseen servant, see invisibility. Wait a minute. If you have an unseen servant and you see the invisibility, what's the point of having an unseen servant? Because you're just going to see him anyway.
It's for everybody else.
Way too easy. Speak with dead, death ward, and little death. So we're seeing the unseen, and we're talking with preventing the little death.
Yes, and also one other thing is you can cast these spells with sorcery points as well, equal to the spell.
So it's not so that ratio of conversion is much better
for those spells.
Yeah, specifically with these, you're not having to spend sorcery points to get your spell slots back to cast. So you have more spell slots. It's just
Right.
one for
Action
one.
economy,
cut.
not having to use the bonus action to do it, and also cost-wise efficiency.
Yep.
Also level 1. Phantom Companion. That's what the whole thing is built around, really. You learn the Find Familiar spell and can cast it as ritual.
Okay.
It doesn't count against your number of spells known. When you cast a spell, you can only choose the form of a Specter, which becomes your Phantom Companion instead of Celestial, Fey, or Fiend. This familiar's creature type is undead. So first off, before I continue with this, a Specter is a CR1 creature. Just throwing that out there right off the bat. You're level 1.
Normal Find Familiar rules are like CR.
Yeah, zip. So, anyways, as an action, you can command your Phantom Companion to turn invisible until it attacks, or you cast a spell through it. While invisible, it leaves no physical evidence of its passage, so it can be tracked only by magic. Any equipment or objects it is holding remains visible. Additionally, at 3rd level, when you take the attack action, you can forego one of your own attacks to allow your familiar to make its life drain attack with its reaction.
Yes.
Though you are a sorcerer, so one of your attacks is all of your attacks, unless you multi-class.
Multi-class. Looking at you, scary paladin. Dipping into this.
Speaking of spooky, 6th Sense also at 1st level.
Yes.
When you make a dexterity ability check to determine initiative, you gain a bonus equal to your charisma modifier.
Get spooky quick. Real fast. And in a hurry. At level 6, we get Strength of Spirit. Your Phantom Companion feature empowers it further. Gain the following benefits. This is a lot. Your Specter's maximum hit point increases by 4 times your level in this class. Lots of health for your friend. Your Specter can deliver spells of any range, not just touch. Apart from this change, it follows all the normal rules for casting a spell through your familiar. When you use your action to cast a spell, you can use a bonus action on the same turn to command your Specter to use its life drain attack against a creature within range of your choice. Also level 6, because why not, is Deathly Pallor. Again, these people like making up words. You gain resistance to necrotic damage. In addition, when you cast a sorcerer spell that deals damage, you can choose to change that damage type to necrotic.
Can be helpful getting around damage resistances
Sure.
if you know something's got that. Level 14, we get Phantom Possession. As an action, you can direct your Phantom Companion to attempt to possess and enter a humanoid of your choice within 5 feet of your Phantom. Creatures immune to the charm condition are immune to the feature. When you do, the creature must succeed a charisma save against your spell save or be possessed for 1 minute. During this time, your Phantom cannot be affected by spells or abilities, take actions, or interact with in any way. While the target is possessed, you have a telepathic link with it as long as the two of you are within 100 feet. You can use this telepathic link to issue commands to the creature while you are conscious, no action required, which it does its best to obey. If the creature completes the order and doesn't receive further direction from you, it defends and preserves itself to the best of its ability, taking the dodge action if it has not used its action already. Each time the target takes damage, it makes a new charisma save against the possession. If the saving throw succeeds, it ends and your phantom companion reappears in the closest unoccupied space. Once you use the feature, can't use it again to finish a short rest. Yeah, short.
Short.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention too is that's crazy with this is just a quick note with the Specter. It is like immune to like everything as well.
Yep.
So
immune to necrotic and poison, resist acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder, BPS, or non-magical attacks. So it's literally just radiant, force, and psychic damage that this can take normally.
Yeah, so it's pretty good, and it's got 22 hit points, but it does only have a 12 AC. I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is that it does have sunlight sensitivity, so in sunlight it has disadvantage on attack rolls and perception checks, so it is mostly just going to be like a conduit for you to channel stuff through more often than not.
Yeah, at least during the daytime. Finally, at 18, we have Become Death. You can transmute your physical form into a spectral one when you are near death. When you take damage that would reduce you to 0 hit points, you drop to 1 hit point instead and gain temporary hit points equal to half of your maximum hit points. At the start of each of your turns, you lose 5 temporary hit points, and all creatures of your choice within 30 feet take 5 necrotic damage. While you have any temporary hit points granted from this feature, you have resistance to all damage, a fly speed of 30 feet, and can move through creatures and objects provided you end your movement in an unoccupied space. This did not specify as difficult terrain. You can just straight up move through stuff.
Yep.
Once you use the feature, you can't use it until you finish a long rest. So it's,
all right.
The whatever the orc racial is actually called, I think what it's called, the fortitude, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
On absolute steroids.
Yeah, Death Ward, similar.
Yeah.
But you're getting basically a second health bar, which we'll get to here in a minute. But first is the roleplay rating.
Yes.
Asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background. That is on you as a player. We cannot rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
Yes, we can.
So, looking at the actual roleplay mechanical abilities, you get some free spells, which is good. There are some RP options in there for sure, though they are a little bit limited. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know how often you're really going to be doing Speak with Dead. Like, how often does it come up? I mean, it can come up relatively often. If you're in combats more, you're killing things, you can speak with them. Unseen Servant, sure. See Invisibility, they can come into play. But
I think I have a problem with that spell in general is that why would you would have to have some reason to use it,
right?
Like without metagaming, how are you going to know that? Unless you're like, be careful. There's been sightings of like ambushes and stuff. I was like, okay, I've seen invisibility in case there's like people being stupid,
or like a puzzle room or something. Like something that doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
like
it's. Yeah, it's very, very specific.
Right.
It's uses on there.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that is crazy though is the RP potential with the familiar. Like once you have that thing going,
scary.
I mean, it can turn invisible and it leaves no physical trace behind it. Mm-hmm. So you can have it command it to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, if you're going to grab stuff, you're going to see like a floating thing that it's carrying or whatever, so you have to keep that in mind. But for a lot of things...
Freaking some people out, what I'm thinking.
Always. You open up your haunted house.
That's right.
There's all kinds of stuff that can
we need some money, guys. I've got an idea.
Right. So there's some potential with that for sure. Though you do have to have it active and, situations have to be barring that they make sense for it to happen. Because it might not, and if it does, come out of invisibility, it might not always be the greatest thing to have, like a ghosty, ghouly thing around you. Might not go over well in certain circumstances.
You're at some dignitary's fancy party, and all of a sudden it's just like, well, what is that? It's like, oh, that's just Tim.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
So there's some RP options for sure, but a little bit on the niche side, I would say. We went with a 3.5 out of 5. Some good options for certain circumstances.
I would say punchy kicky things, but you're a sorcerer. You don't want to punch or kick anything. Because if you do, you aren't you, because you're made of paper. But you have this super tanky ghost thing in terms of what the damage it resists. Now, it doesn't have very much health or much armor class to start off with. But that's going to change here in just a second. The spell list is not consistently great for combat side of things. Like Death Ward is, prevents you having to worry about keeping somebody up, especially if you don't have an outright healer in the party. You're like, okay, it helps keep somebody up,
maybe.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm not crazy about Death Ward just because a lot of things end up having multi-attack, so it's like it can save you sometimes, but sometimes it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because they hit you.
It just saves you a death saving throw.
It saves you, yeah, right.
Pretty much all it's going to do. But you get to bring an extra dude in there. He can still attack and things. The drawback, like Jameson said, is the sunlight sensitivity, so he's got a disadvantage on his attack rolls and stuff in full sun. So you got to be smart about where you position him. If you can find shaded areas during the day, or be effective at nighttime if you want to actually do something. But again, him being a second point to cast spells through is going to be the other reliable thing he can do.
The other thing too is his attack doesn't scale. It just is +4 all the time. Mm-hmm. So early on, it's going to be much better. And as you get higher level, it's basically you're just never going to attack with it because it just is not worth it.
I mean, you're going to try.
I mean, sure.
You're not expecting anything out of it.
Right. And it's not much damage either.
No.
Sure.
But it gets a dexterity ability modifier to go first, which is fine because you can maybe get a big spell off early. Or you can reposition yourself very quickly if you've been ambushed to one side and you get that extra little chance to go in front of some other people, get yourself out of trouble. And once this hits 6 is where you're get a whole lot more potent because you can use. We talked about the issues with it, but you can use your bonus action to have your Specter attack. Like a lot of newer Beastmaster-esque companion-based subclasses get to do. It gets a ton more health, 4 times your class level. That's a bunch. And again, it also allows you to cast spells at any range from your familiar. So if you're trying to hit something with fill in the blank attack roll spell, whether it's Firebolt, Chaos Bolt, Finger of Death, you don't have a clear line of sight on something, but it's around the corner, so that tree's not in its way. It's like I can see it. No half cover for you from over here, there, sweet pea. It makes it there. Resistance to necrotic damage is great. My preference there is changing damage spells to necrotic because, again, if you're not fighting undead stuff, necrotic is a very good damage type because things that resist necrotic that aren't undead are very, very uncommon. And then the last two are where things get a bit bonkers because the possession thing is essentially a dominate monster. But it's person, it's humanoid specifically. But it's a once per short rest 5th level spell.
Similar.
It's a similar effect anyway. So that's, again, wonderful. And it's a charisma saving throw, so good freaking luck, unless it's an enemy caster who happens to use charisma or
pretty solid
a dragon.
Right.
But the dragon's also not a humanoid, so couldn't use it anyway.
That's a gray area.
But, that's wonderful. And if Become Death thing, this does go into the problem we have with abilities like this of, ideally, this will never have to be used because you're not going to go down. You're a sorcerer, so if somebody looks at you wrong, it's going to happen. That's true. Because even when you're like, well, I'm going to have 130 health. I was like, okay.
The barbarian's got double your health.
And double your health and a higher AC, and it's more mobile, and it has damage resistance and all that stuff. You have no armor and no hit points. So, again, it's going to trigger at some point. So the fact that it doesn't just keep you up, it gets you half your health back as temporary hit points, and you do lose some every turn, but you have resistance to damage and flying speed, so you can, for free, so you can get yourself way out of trouble. And something I completely missed the idea of that Jameson pointed out to me when we were discussing this was, I was like, well, you're just gonna die immediately. He's like, well, you could heal up in the process. It's like, oh yeah,
it's 10 HP.
You HP. You could be, you could heal your actual HP underneath the temp HP. He's like, oh yeah, so you could if you had some healing in the party help keep you up a little bit longer. But either way, that's a lot of great things. It's a little slow to get going. Yeah. At the start, your Find Familiar thing is better than a regular one.
It's slow to get going, but this Specter early on is great.
Right. It's just like its offensive mechanics aren't a ton because its chance to hit isn't great, and the full sun thing is going to be the bigger problem.
+4,
Yeah,
a lot of times.
But there's a ton of good options in here. So the fact that you get some spells you can cast, even if they're not super widely used, they're kind of specific. You can cast these spells specifically with your sorcery points and having to convert and everything. We did go with a 4 out of 5 on the combat side of things.
Yeah.
Again, the last two abilities give you especially 14. I strongly love Dominate Person. Once per short rest.
It's pretty solid. There's like this little weird area kind of like in the middle between like 1, you're pretty solid because the Specter is actually kind of crazy to have a companion that's that strong that early at first level.
Because its AC is 12, but it resists all damage types.
It's got 20 health.
So
it's gonna have more health than anyone in your party is gonna have, and it can deal 3d6 on a hit.
True. And I didn't think about that in my head. It's like because it's only got 20 hit points and 12 HC. It's like but at level 1,
like even you're just using early on, the best thing to do is just let it attack. Like you don't even do anything. You could cast cantrips, but this thing is. It's a +4 to hit, which is it's a very low chance to hit, but it deals 3d6 necrotic damage.
Yep.
So that's your cantrips aren't dealing 3d6.
I don't know why in my head I just didn't think. I was like, well, it's fine. I was like, well, no, at level 1 it's really silly because 20 HP is gonna be more than your barbarian's got at level 1.
Yeah.
Because he's only gonna have 15 hit points at most.
Right. Yeah. Because if they had con as their primary stat and they didn't roll.
You get the max 12 plus con is 16. They got 13, 14, 15, 16 health, something like that.
Right.
But this has got 20 and all the resistances, not just BPS resistance. That's the range.
Exactly.
And Barbarian's only range at 1.
Yeah. Whew. Goodness. So it's pretty solid early on.
Yeah.
I'm already in synergy, by the way, if that wasn't apparent. But yeah, it is super good with the Spectre early on. Then it kind of from 1. I mean, obviously you don't get another ability till 6, which it really it doesn't become any more effective, right? It just gives you another point to cast from because it can be ranged,
and it's not going to die either.
At that point, as you level up, that +4 to hit is going to get progressively worse.
Yeah.
So it's going to switch from being a good offensive tool to being just a utility tool, and it does that pretty quickly. I would say it kind of has to just because the way it works. Mm-hmm. But that being said, on here, I mean, obviously, again, early on with your proficiency, +2, and you have a +3, +4 to your spellcaster mod, you're only going to have, a +6 to hit yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not really that much worse.
And you're doing less damage than this thing is.
Right.
So unless you're spending your spell slot.
Right. You're taking that risk. If you wanted to have a chance to hit and deal a little bit more than your cantrip would, you have that option. But that falls off pretty quick because you're going to be double the chance to hit pretty quickly with this. The resistance to necrotic damage gives you some good survivability. The capstone gives you some great survivability. But you do have to hit that 0, and it does slowly go away, which is a little sketchy because, I mean, half of your health, but you're, a D6 is still not a lot of health, plus you're losing 5 a turn.
Yep.
You do get, like we said, you get resistance to all the damage. So it's going to basically be like you're getting your whole health bar back, essentially, for thematic purposes, but you are losing a chunk every single turn.
Yeah.
So you got to really keep that in mind. And then just having the pseudo-dominate again is a great utility option to have just available in your back pocket when you need to, but it does have to be a humanoid, which,
it does.
You don't have the option for dominate monster, which is a huge spell, so that makes sense. But it is still a nice option to have. So great utility, some decent defensive options.
Yeah.
The scaling Specter as it kind of switches and shifts and how it's used is interesting from a player perspective because you're not just doing the same thing throughout the whole leveling process. You kind of have to shift your strategy, which I think is kind of interesting.
It is. Yeah.
We went with a 4 out of 5.
We did.
On this. Very interesting. There's some limitations. And it does get maybe a little wonky and kind of as that transition happens. In that middle zone
that
transition.
Middle, 6 to 14 can be kind of weird.
Yeah.
Where you may feel like you're not getting a ton out of it.
Right.
Besides just utility.
It does feel kind of later on. It's the abilities you get later on are super, at 14 and 18, are super impactful.
Yeah.
But they're also super limited.
Yeah.
So it's
you trades early on. You got this nice reliability that slowly shifts into super potent rare stuff
right
toward the end.
Exactly. So really interesting, unique kind of flavor with the companion kind of feel subclass. But that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you know when all of our new videos are coming out. Make sure to check out our sponsors and link down below. And as always, thanks for watching. Go digital this winter. Immerse yourself with the latest release, Lore of Aethera, The Lost Druid. This science fantasy adventure uses cinematic storytelling to bring you a fully immersive experience. There's also the stunning islands of Sina Una, inspired by Filipino mythology and culture. Embark on an epic adventure as birds and other woodland critters in Humblewood. Hundreds of new magic items for your adventure with the Griffin Saddlebag PDF. Check out the Humblewood and Heckna STLs. Support the channel by going to hitpointpress.com for all of your 5e needs.